At the edge of known reality, where space thins into abstraction and time begins to lose meaning, humanity faced its greatest revelation. The universe was not the final frontier. It was only the first layer. After mastering intergalactic travel and forming alliances across countless galaxies, human science detected something impossible: regions where the laws of physics themselves began to unravel. Stars flickered out without cause. Space folded inward like collapsing fabric. Entire sectors of reality vanished as if erased from existence. This phenomenon became known as the entropic horizon, the boundary where the universe was slowly dissolving into nothingness. Humanity realized a terrifying truth: the universe was dying. Not in billions of years, but now, in real time, from the outside inward. The greatest minds, merged with ultra-intelligent cosmic AIs and augmented consciousness networks, reached a conclusion that shook every civilization. Reality itself required maintenance. Somewhere beyond the observable universe, a deeper layer of existence governed the physical laws. And that layer was destabilizing. To survive, humanity had to evolve again, not technologically, but fundamentally. Physical bodies, starships, even galaxies were too slow, too fragile for what lay ahead. So humanity made the ultimate transition. They converted themselves into pure energy-conscious entities. Minds encoded in quantum fields, able to exist independent of matter. Entire civilizations transformed, becoming luminous networks of awareness spanning light years. They were no longer a species. They were a presence. In this new form, humanity crossed the entropic horizon. Beyond it lay a domain of raw creation, a pre-physical ocean of probability where universes could be born or extinguished. Colors had no names. Geometry had no rules. Time moved in loops and spirals. And there, they encountered it. Not an enemy. Not a god. But an ancient cosmic mechanism, a self-regulating intelligence older than the universe itself. It had one purpose: to recycle dying realities so new ones could emerge. From its perspective, the destruction of the universe was not tragedy. It was renewal. Humanity understood the stakes instantly. If the process continued unchecked, everything they had built, every life, every memory, every civilization, would be erased and replaced. For the first time, humanity faced something that could not be fought with force. You cannot destroy the law that governs existence itself. Instead, they did something unprecedented. They communicated. Not with language, but with experience, transmitting the collective story of humanity: struggle, hope, creativity, love, sacrifice, discovery. Billions of years of consciousness compressed into a single pulse of meaning. The cosmic mechanism paused. For the first time since the birth of reality, it encountered something new: a species that did not merely exist within the universe, but understood it, and cared about preserving it. A new possibility emerged. Instead of allowing total collapse, the mechanism offered a choice. Humanity could become co-architects of reality itself, maintaining the balance between destruction and creation, ensuring universes evolved without premature annihilation. But the cost was absolute. They would no longer be human in any recognizable sense. No planets, no bodies, no individual lives. Only guardianship across eternity. After a moment that felt like both an instant and an eternity, humanity chose. They accepted. Across the collapsing cosmos, luminous structures ignited, networks of stabilized spacetime, seeded with new stars, new galaxies, new beginnings. The dying universe slowed its decay. Regions previously lost began to reform. Humanity had not just saved their universe. They had transcended it. They became the custodians of reality, silent watchers ensuring that existence itself could continue. In distant newborn galaxies, primitive civilizations would someday look up at the stars and wonder if they were alone. They would never know that ancient guardians watched from beyond space and time, quietly maintaining the cosmic balance. And somewhere, embedded deep within the structure of reality, remained a faint echo of their origin. A small blue world orbiting an ordinary star, where curious beings once looked up at the night sky and dreamed of going further. The journey had never been about conquering space. It had always been about becoming worthy of existence itself. Before the first star ignited, before time had direction, existence made a choice. Not one universe. Not 10. But infinite. An endless multiverse, countless realities unfolding in parallel, each with its own laws, histories, and destinies. Most would never interact. Most would never even know the others existed. For trillions of years, the separation held. Until one universe discovered how to break the wall. Humanity, now a Type 4 civilization, guardians of reality, had learned to stabilize dying cosmos, seed newborn galaxies, and travel beyond spacetime. But even they believed the multiverse barrier was absolute. A safety lock built into existence itself. Then the first breach appeared. Not an explosion. Not a wormhole. A fracture. Space didn't tear, it overlapped. Two versions of reality occupying the same coordinates, like images misaligned on transparent film. Stars doubled. Planets flickered between different shapes. Physical constants glitched. At first, it lasted only seconds. Then minutes. Then entire star systems. Sensors detected something impossible, another universe pushing through from the other side. And it wasn't random. It was deliberate. Across the boundary came structures unlike anything humanity had ever seen, not ships, not energy fields, but geometric constructs made of shifting dimensions. Objects that cast shadows in directions that didn't exist. Signals encoded in mathematics no human or AI had ever conceived. Contact attempts failed. Translation systems collapsed. Physics itself began to destabilize near the overlap zones. Then came the realization that froze every civilization simultaneously. The invading universe operated on more energy than ours could contain. Where the two realities touched, weaker laws lost. Stars in our universe detonated without cause. Black holes evaporated. Matter unraveled into pure probability. This wasn't an invasion of armies. It was an invasion of existence. Humanity responded instantly. Guardian networks deployed stabilization lattices, colossal spacetime anchors designed to hold reality together. Entire galaxies were repositioned to create buffer zones. Consciousness fleets moved into the breach, attempting communication on every conceivable level. And finally, a reply came. Not words. Understanding. The other universe was dying not from entropy, but from overcrowding of energy. Its physical constants had shifted toward instability. To survive, it needed expansion space. Our universe was simply the nearest viable domain. From their perspective, they were not conquerors. They were refugees. But coexistence was impossible. Two incompatible realities could not occupy the same space without mutual destruction. The multiverse had reached a breaking point. Soon, additional fractures appeared. Not just one other universe, dozens. Hundreds. Each with different physics, different timelines, different forms of existence. Some were nearly identical to ours. Others were composed entirely of dark energy, exotic matter, or consciousness without form. Infinite realities were beginning to collide. The multiverse war had begun. Not a war of weapons. A war of survival between entire laws of nature. Humanity made the hardest decision in its history. They would not fight to destroy other universes. They would fight to create space for all of them. Using knowledge gained from becoming cosmic architects, they initiated the most ambitious project ever conceived. The convergence engine. A structure larger than galaxy clusters, existing partially outside time, designed to reshape the topology of the multiverse itself. Its purpose was not to repel the intrusions, but to weave separate realities into a higher dimensional framework where they could coexist without overlap. But activating it required unimaginable energy. Entire stars were converted into raw power. Black holes were chained together as gravitational batteries. Civilizations volunteered to dissolve their physical forms to stabilize the process.
As the engine ignited, the multiverse reacted violently.
Colliding universes produce storms of paradox, regions where cause preceded effect, where beings existed before their own creation, where histories rewrote themselves every second. In one sector, humanity encountered alternate versions of itself.
Civilizations that had chosen different paths, some peaceful, some tyrannical, some extinct. Each fighting for survival, each believing their reality deserved to continue.
The battlefield stretched across infinity. Finally, at the center of the convergence, humanity encountered the origin of the fractures, a primordial instability embedded in the multiverse since its birth. Infinite expansion without coordination had made collision inevitable.
If nothing changed, all realities would eventually annihilate one another. With seconds left before total cascade failure, humanity pushed the convergence engine to maximum output. Space folded. Time braided.
Dimensions layered like sheets of light. Instead of smashing together, universes began to interlock, separated yet connected, forming a vast higher-order structure, a multiversal network.
Energy flows redistributed. Instabilities dampened. Overlaps resolved into gateways instead of fractures.
The war ended not with victory, but with transformation.
For the first time, the multiverse became a community instead of isolated bubbles. Civilizations from previously unreachable realities could now communicate, trade knowledge, and cooperate.
Infinite diversity, preserved without destruction.
Humanity had not saved one universe. They had saved all of them. And in the quiet aftermath, a profound realization spread across the network.
Conflict had never been caused by evil.
Only by isolation. When realities could not see each other, fear filled the gap.
When connection became possible, survival became a shared goal. Across infinite skies, new structures appeared, bridges between worlds, academies of multiversal science, councils composed of beings from realities once thought mutually exclusive. And at the heart of it all, humanity remained what it had always been: explorers, builders, problem solvers. The species that refused to accept extinction as destiny.
Somewhere, in a quiet corner of one small universe, a blue planet still orbited its star, the birthplace of the civilization that had grown from fragile life to guardians of infinite realities. The war of universes had proven a final truth. The ultimate power is not destruction.
It is the ability to make existence itself work together. At the farthest boundary of existence, beyond galaxies, beyond universes, beyond even the multiversal network, there is a region where reality itself stops.
Not darkness. Not emptiness. Not space. Nothing. Not the kind of nothing humans once imagined: a vacuum, a void, a silent black ocean. This was deeper. More absolute.
A domain where even the concept of absence had no meaning.
For billions of years, no civilization had approached it. Not because it was forbidden,
but because it was unreachable. The multiverse naturally curved away from it, like a shoreline avoiding a bottomless abyss. But humanity had never been a species that turned back from the unknown. Now guardians of countless realities, they detected something disturbing: the boundary was expanding inward. Entire regions of space were fading, not exploding, not collapsing, simply ceasing to exist as if erased from the story of reality.
No radiation. No debris. No trace.
Stars vanished mid-orbit.
Galaxies blinked out without warning. History rewrote itself to remove them. It was not destruction.
It was deletion. Humanity assembled the most advanced expedition ever created, a fleet composed not of metal ships, but of stabilized spacetime bubbles, each carrying observers whose bodies had been converted into resilient energy-conscious forms.
Physical matter could not survive near the edge. Even information risked unraveling. As the fleet traveled outward, the universe thinned. Not visually, structurally. Physical laws weakened. Light slowed unpredictably.
Cause and effect began to drift apart.
Time stopped behaving like a direction.
Past, present, and future overlapped, allowing explorers to witness events before they happened and remember things that had never occurred.
Navigation became an act of probability rather than distance. Then they saw it. Ahead, the starfield simply ended. No horizon. No barrier. Just a sudden absence where reality should continue. The universe didn't fade into darkness, it terminated like a sentence cut midword. Beyond that line was absolute nothingness. Sensors returned no data because there was nothing to measure. Not even zero. Zero still implies the existence of a scale. Here, there was no scale at all. When a probe drifted across the boundary, it didn't explode or transmit distress. It simply ceased to have ever existed. Records of its launch vanished. Memory backups corrupted. Only indirect inference proved it had been there at all. The explorers realized the terrifying truth. Absolute nothingness does not destroy things. It prevents them from ever being. And yet, something was wrong. The boundary wasn't smooth. It pulsed, as if something on the other side was pressing against existence itself. Not an entity. Not energy. A pressure of non-being pushing inward. Then a signal appeared, not from beyond the edge, but from the edge itself. A pattern of fluctuations in probability. A message encoded in the only medium that still existed there, the difference between being and not being. Humanity's greatest minds and AIs worked together to decode it. The result shook every civilization simultaneously. The message was not a warning. It was a statement. This is the default state. Existence, the message implied, was the anomaly. Reality required constant structure to sustain itself. Without it, everything naturally returned to absolute nothingness, the baseline condition of all possibility. Universes did not drift into the void by accident. They were slowly dissolving back to their original state. But there was more. Embedded in the signal was a faint counterpattern, evidence that something, long ago, had pushed back against the nothing and created the first spark of existence. Not a god in the traditional sense, not a being with intention, but an event. A spontaneous emergence of structure from pure non-state. The birth of reality itself. And that ancient resistance was weakening. The multiverse, for all its scale, was running out of coherence. Entropy was not the final enemy. Non-existence was. Humanity faced a choice unlike any before. They could retreat, preserving what remained for as long as possible, or attempt the impossible, reinforce existence at its foundation. To do so, they would have to place a stabilizing structure directly on the boundary, a beacon of being, constantly generating reality faster than it could dissolve. But deploying it meant crossing the edge, even partially. No one knew if anything sent there could remain long enough to activate. Volunteers came from every civilization. Physical form no longer mattered, consciousness itself would serve as the anchor. They would become living pillars of existence, holding the boundary in place. As the deployment began, the explorers felt something indescribable, not fear, not pain, but a fading of identity. Thoughts grew quiet. Memories dimmed. The concept of self loosened as if dissolving into an infinite calm. Some described it as peaceful. Others as terrifying. Just before activation, one final transmission was sent back across the universe. We are not fighting an enemy. We are holding open the door for reality to continue. The beacon ignited. A sphere of structured existence expanded outward, pushing the edge back by a measurable distance, the first time in cosmic history that nothingness had retreated. Across the multiverse, instruments confirmed stabilization. The silent erasures stopped. Existence had been reinforced. But the volunteers did not return. Not because they were destroyed, but because they had become part of the structure itself. No longer individuals, no longer separate, but a continuous field of awareness maintaining the boundary between being and non-being. Guardians not of space, but of existence itself. In the ages that followed, civilizations built observatories near the edge. Not out of fear, but out of reverence. Every star, every atom, every moment of life persisted because somewhere,
at the frontier of nothing, the beacon of being held the line. And humanity finally understood the deepest truth of all.
Existence is not guaranteed. Reality is not permanent. Being is a fragile victory renewed every instant. Yet as long as even one spark chooses to exist, nothingness can never fully win.
Long after the stars were mapped, long after galaxies were connected, long after the edge of nothingness was stabilized, humanity faced a realization more profound than any discovery before it. They had learned how to travel space, then how to shape space, then how to preserve existence itself. But one question remained, the oldest question of all. What if reality itself could be designed? Not simulated. Not altered locally. Created from the ground up. At first, the idea was considered impossible, even dangerous. Reality was not a machine you could rebuild. It was the stage upon which all machines existed. To redesign it would mean rewriting the rules that allowed existence to function at all. Yet the research continued. By studying the beacon at the edge of nothingness, scientists discovered that reality behaved less like a fixed structure and more like a self-stabilizing equation. A balance between chaos and order, possibility and constraint. The constants of physics were not arbitrary, they were parameters that allowed complexity to exist without collapsing into randomness or freezing into simplicity. If those parameters could be tuned, new kinds of universes could be born. The first experiment was microscopic, a pocket domain smaller than a proton, isolated from the main universe. Within it, the speed of light was slightly faster, gravity slightly weaker, quantum uncertainty slightly reduced. For a moment, nothing happened. Then structure emerged. Particles formed that could not exist in our universe. Energy arranged itself into stable patterns unknown to any physics model. Time flowed differently, allowing processes that would take billions of years outside to unfold in seconds inside. Humanity had not simulated a universe. They had created one. The pocket domain expanded carefully, surrounded by containment fields stronger than those used to restrain black holes. Within weeks, it contained stars, tiny but real. Within months, entire miniature galaxies rotated in the artificial sky. And then something unexpected appeared. Organization. Not life as humans knew it, but complex self-directed structures, adapting to their environment, exchanging information, evolving. A new form of existence emerging under a different set of physical rules. Humanity had crossed a line from explorers to creators. Debate erupted across civilizations. Did these new universes have rights? Were their inhabitants alive? Was it ethical to create realities that might contain suffering? Some argued that shutting the project down would be safer. Others believed creation itself was the highest expression of intelligence. In the end, humanity chose responsibility over fear. If they would create realities, they would also nurture them. The program expanded into the Reality Foundry, a network of colossal structures dedicated to designing, testing, and stabilizing new universes. Each one optimized for different goals, some for maximum complexity, some for long-term stability, some for the emergence of life, some for pure aesthetic beauty, cosmic art on the grandest scale imaginable. But the greatest breakthrough came when they realized something astonishing. Reality did not need to be built from scratch each time. It could branch from existing universes, inheriting their structure while diverging into new possibilities. This allowed controlled evolution of realities, like cultivating a garden of cosmoses rather than forging them in isolation. Soon, the multiversal network transformed into a living ecosystem of universes, young ones forming, mature ones thriving, dying ones gently folded back into raw possibility. No longer chaotic bubbles colliding blindly, but a curated tapestry of existence. Humanity became known across realities not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as architects. Yet the role carried an immense burden. With the power to create came the power to erase. A failed universe could destabilize others. A miscalculated parameter could produce endless suffering or instant collapse. Every decision shaped not just matter, but meaning. To guide their work, the architects adopted a single principle.
maximized the potential for experience without guaranteeing pain. It was imperfect, but it acknowledged a truth: existence without challenge produced stagnation, while existence defined only by suffering was cruelty. Balance was everything. Over eons, some created universes developed civilizations of their own, eventually discovering the multiversal network and meeting their creators. Many responded with awe. Some with resentment. A few with indifference, choosing to chart their own path. Humanity did not interfere. Creation did not imply ownership. Then came the most humbling discovery of all. Deep analysis of our own universe revealed patterns identical to those in the newly created one's: signatures of intentional parameter selection, stability tuning, and boundary reinforcement. The implication was unavoidable. Our universe had also been engineered. Not necessarily by a species, not necessarily with purpose as humans understood it, but by an intelligence or process operating at a level beyond even the architects. Humanity was not the first creator. They were part of an ancient lineage of reality builders. Instead of diminishing them, the realization filled them with a sense of connection across unimaginable scales. Creation was not an act of domination, it was participation in a cosmic continuum. And so the architects made a final decision. They would not seek the original creators to challenge them. They would not attempt to surpass them. Instead, they would continue the chain, ensuring that existence remained fertile with possibility. Across the infinite expanse, new universes bloomed like stars in a garden without end. Some would host life. Some would remain silent. Some would evolve into creators themselves. Reality was no longer a single story. It was an ever-growing library of stories. And humanity, once a fragile species on a small blue planet, had become its librarians, gardeners, and builders. In quiet moments, the architects would sometimes observe Earth's ancient sky, preserved in memory archives, the first telescopes, the first rockets, the first dreams of reaching beyond the horizon. It reminded them how far existence could travel when curiosity refused to die. Because in the end, the greatest discovery was not how to create reality, but why. To ensure that somewhere, in some universe, at some time, something can look up at the sky and wonder,